A warm greetings, everyone, and welcome to the International Book Show virtual book tour March 2025, hosted by myself, Makona and Sankofa, as well as being the host of the International Book Show. I'm also the author of several books, including The Rise of Rastafari, Life in Gambia, How to Market and Sell Your Book, and Experiences of Living Across Africa. Now, in case you haven't watched the International Book Show before, the International Book Show is an online video show which I host every month, and a variety of different authors give you a preview of what the book they've written about. So you're going to be hearing speeches throughout this show of different authors and authors that are in different locations as well. The International Book Show, we have authors and audience that are global, so you're going to hear authors that are in different locations, and you yourself, you may be watching us from whether it's UK, whether you're in America, you're Canada, Africa, Europe, Asia. We have viewers who watch in different locations. The show is available to be watched. You may be watching on P English Literature YouTube channel. You may be watching via the International Book Show Facebook group, the International Book Show website. And please do, feel free to join the Facebook group. If you go on the Facebook group and join, if you put in the International Book Show, you can stay up to date on news and information regarding the book show. Also check out our website, internationalbookshow.com. Without any further ado, I'm going to now hand it over to the first author who's going to be showcasing their book on this episode of the International Book Show. So I'm now going to hand it over to that author.
Hi, I am Pharaoh, and I'm the author of a brand new Anancy story, Anancy Take a Trip. And in this book is a story of how Anancy sort of took a Windrush journey from Port Antonio in Jamaica to Peckham. He came to Peckham to find his family. In this book, you'll also find some songs, and I'm going to read a little excerpt of it. Oh my gosh, my tongue is getting tied up. And I'm also going to maybe sing maybe the last song, because when his friends who put together for him to get to do this trip are telling him goodbye, they sing this song, Goodbye Anancy. But I get ahead of myself. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a retired teacher, used to teach reception, and I'm a musician, I'm a composer, and I'm an author. I lead worship at my church. So I'm a musician. I mean, I've been doing piano since I was 3.5 years old. My parents sent me to lessons. So music is just a part of everything I do. And so every story that I've written, I've done three children's books so far, have an element of music. And it's because I was in the classroom that the children really resonated, or the stories really resonated with the children when there was an element of music that they could actually sing the story. So hence, all of my books have music in them, have at least two songs in them. So back to Anansi. So I know there are lots of other stories about Anansi which have been passed down. And but this one I decided I would do a brand new story because because of Windrush. And my parents were also part of the Windrush generation that came to England. They came in the early 50s. So Anansi starts his trip out in Jaspertown, which is a made-up town. It's not a real town. I did want to use a town that the Maroons lived in, but I thought better, and I said, let me make up my own town. And Jasper has its own meanings. So the book also explains that. And I'm just going to read a little bit of the beginning of the story, so you get a flavor for it. In the rolling hills of Portland, Jamaica, there was a village called Jaspertown, home to the happiest animals you could hope to find anywhere. Excuse me. They were kind and friendly, and this was crystal clear for all to see, for the most part. They treated each other as if they were precious gems. But there was one notable exception. Anansi! Anansi, part spider and part man, wanted to see the world. But everyone in his family seemed to leave him behind as they went off to seek their fortunes. His dad left, his mom left, and even his sisters left, always promising that they would send a ticket for him so he could join them. And Nancy waited, waited, and waited for a letter to arrive with growing sadness and frustration. And in the meantime, because he was becoming impatient, he got himself into trouble over and over again with Brer Rat, who he harassed, Brer Coney, who he scared, Brer Boa, who he teased, and Brer Hog, who he loved to tickle. Days, weeks, and months went past, and Anancy got sadder and sadder, and badder and badder, and madder and madder. Gonna stop there. I'm not gonna read the whole book because you can get the book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. And yeah, just click on Amazon, look for Theory and look for Anancy, take a trip. And it's quite affordable. I think what I might also do is read a little of the ending when he goes down to the Bowden Wharf, which is not really operational anymore for those of you who are Jamaicans and who come from Portland. Might just have a little bit of show you a little bit of that as well. And he gets on a ship. So I'm going to show you a picture of the ship. All right, here's a picture of the ship. And it was a banana boat that he got on. And it was laden with all kinds of things, but mostly banana. So he lived in a corner of the hold and ate bananas as well as his little treats that he had packed. Right, a bit more about my book. Again, there are lots of activities for children that are engaging. So the book has longevity. It's not just a book you're going to put down, read and put down. So there's characters for coloring. There's also instructions to make your own spider if you're so inclined. Um, and there are also some facts about the animals that you heard me mention at the beginning. So those animals are endemic to Jamaica, but they're also on the decline. So the mongoose, um, the boa, the yellow snake. Yes, we have snakes in Jamaica. Um, the wild boar. Um, well, I don't think the rat's on decline, um, but certainly the coney, tricky to spot one. So there's information on those as well. And I just want to pick up my team. Um, um, well, Ruth Fraser was the person who did all the illustrations, fantastic artist. And if you link me on Instagram also, I can give you her information. Yes, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I'm on X. Yeah, you'll find me there. And then my editor, who is oh boy, a stickler for the correct language, um, Sandra Wint, Dr. Sandra Wint. So she's also a good person to link with. Right. I think I want to sing a little bit of the song Anancy Never Look Back, just to finish off. And oh, is everything, have I mentioned everything in the book? Oh yeah, there's some crossword puzzles and there's yeah, some more coloring. So really a book that you will keep and you will use for a long, long, long time. All right, so Anancy, take a trip. So Anancy never looked back. He took a trip on the SS Tilapa ship. That was the name of the ship that he took a trip on. He never looked back. He didn't ball. No, he never said goodbye. He never looked back. So let's have a little go with this one. I hope you can hear. I hope you can hear it. Let me just move it a bit so you can see the piano. Yeah, okay. Anancy take a trip on the SS till Appa ship him never look back. No, him never look back. And Nancy did not born, no, him never say goodbye. No, him never look back. No, him never look back. And Nancy spun his web. He lay down his weary head. Him glad bad the bus as him finally touched down upon England's rainy shores. His dream did come true. Him finally land and him finding family. So that song's on YouTube, and you're gonna get the link at the end for that one, with a lovely beat. So I felt like I needed to just emphasize the story. So my links on social media. So I'm on TikTok at Thea Ray. I'm on Instagram at Althia Cooper Ray. I know it's a bit of a mouthful. So at Althia Cooper Ray. And I'm on YouTube as well. My email, thearay at watertowine.org. So you can make contact with me there. And for sheet music, my sheet music is on sheetmusicplus.com, on scoreexchange.com. So I have quite a bit of music on there that you can download. So if you're a musician and you wanna teach your class, or you want to teach whoever you want to teach. I think at the end of the video, you'll also get a link to the YouTube channel for the live video itself as well. So I want to thank you for having me. As I said, on Amazon, if you put in Thea Ray and Anancy take a trip, or if you're not sure, you can email me at thearay at gmail.com, and I'll give you the direct link if you want to do that. But thank you so much for having me, and I hope you enjoy reading Anancy Take a Trip, and watch this space for more. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Thea Ray, for joining me on this edition of the International Book Show Virtual Book Tour March 2025. On display at the moment, you can see the front cover of Thea Ray's book, Anancy Take a Trip. And the book is available to be purchased from Amazon, as she mentioned. I've put the YouTube channel on display as well. And also check out her website. Well, check out the website, sheetmusicplus.com. If you go on sheetmusicplus.com and you put in her name, Thea Ray, then you'll be able to see some of the music that she's made, some of her songs, and you can download some of them from that website, sheetmusicplus.com.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bharti Dhir, and I'm the author of this book called Worth. And it was published by Hay House in 2021. And I just thought that as March marks the International Day for Women, the International Month for Women, really, I want to unashamedly today pay a tribute to my mother and to all the women of the world. Apologies. Okay, so I'll start by talking a bit about my mum and about her courage and about her strength. And in this book, I've talked about being adopted as a dual heritage Asian African woman, being adopted in an Asian family. Racially, I consider myself to be African, but culturally, I consider myself to be Indian, because that is how I was brought up. So first of all, I want to start by saying the tribute that I want to pay to my mom is about the fact that she had a dream and she believed in that dream. So she had a dream that a goddess came to her in the dream and told her to adopt a child. So I've written about it in my book Worth, and much to my father's disbelief and amusement, he thought it was because she was already pregnant with my sister, and he just thought it was just a dream depicting that she was going to have a little girl. but my mum insisted that there was another little girl going to come into the family. And the reason why I'm paying tribute to her about that is because she followed through with her faith. She followed through with her belief. Despite people not believing her, despite people saying, no, that's just not, it's just, a dream, it's just something you're imagining, she really believed in that dream. And she went against societal norms in adopting a child, against the family, extended family. She was in the lead. Okay, my dad was there supporting her eventually, but my mum was the forefront. She was the leader in saying, no, I want to adopt this child. In my book Worth, I've also talked about my mum's courage. There is a chapter in there called A Mother's Courage. And it's not just my mother that I'm talking about in that chapter. So my mother faced, when we were expelled in 1972 by Idi Amin, President Idi Amin of Uganda, my mum faced faced soldiers on the way who threatened to shoot her if she didn't leave me behind, because they recognized that I was part African, and they said that she had to leave me behind because I was one of theirs and not an Asian. And my mum had 4 other children, ages ranging from 2 to 14. I was 11 at the time, and my sister was 11. And my mum knew that disobeying the soldiers could actually cost her life. But she stood firm again in her faith and said, no, I'm not leaving my daughter behind. So that's a tremendous tribute to the courage of women, And even when we got to Kampala, which was the capital, my mum had to go to the embassy to get our papers. And that was over a day trip, because she had to wait for hours and hours and hours in a line. And she went with my cousin. And his wife, who I call Babiji, which means sister-in-law, because we don't refer by name, his wife was left behind to care for us, 5 of us, and her own 4 children. And at night, the soldiers came, and we knew that they came every night, and we had to make sure that our lights were off and our curtains were closed, and we had to sleep on top of the bed. So if the soldiers did come, it would look as if there was nobody in that house and it was empty. And every evening, just before sunset, my brother or my cousins had to go out of the window, go to the front door, and actually lock the door and padlock it, so it looked like the house was empty and that people had fled from that house. And then we would be laying on top of the bed waiting for the sound of the soldiers. And she said, if the soldiers come, you have to get into the water tank and you have to make sure. And I don't know where she got these reeds from, but she gave us these reeds and she said, you have to breathe through this. This will give you air, but you must not make a sound when you go in that water. She goes, I'll hold them off for as long as I can. And then she goes, when you hear a few taps on the side of the water tank, it'll be safe to come out. And again, that is such a tribute to the courage of my cousin's wife, because she knew that if the soldiers had broken down that door and had come in, they were most likely going to shoot her, because they were shooting people at will in their homes. And then there was a truck outside and they were just dumping the bodies and sending people out. So she knew she wasn't going to survive. But first and foremost, her concern was that we should survive. And she gave us a strategy for climbing into that water tank, and actually gave us the means to say, you have to breathe through this. Thankfully, it didn't happen. And we didn't have to go into that water tank. I must admit, as children, we were quite excited at the thought of going in that water tank. We hadn't actually realized the danger, the full danger and the risks that my Babiji was taking in telling us that. Then moved forward and we came to England. My mum bought 5 of us. By then, actually, she was a widow. And we were placed in a council housing in quite a rough state. And they clearly resented us because we were refugees and we'd come and we got a house. And, then the racial attacks began, bricks through the window, mud through the door, dog poo through the, letterbox, graffiti on our walls telling us to leave and get out, telling us we weren't welcome here, to go back where you came from. And my mum faced a gauntlet of children when she used to walk through the park to go shopping to the bus. She used to go to the bus stop and take a shortcut through the park. And these children, some were as young as 4 or 5, would actually follow her, kicking her, throwing stones at her, shouting racial abuse at her. And my mum's attitude was, the literal translation from Punjabi is, they're sick in the head. You've got to feel compassion for them because they don't really understand it. Because when a person is ill, they don't really understand what they're doing or what they're saying. So my mum brought us up to actually almost feel compassion for people who are racist, because we would be saying, oh, they must be sick in the head. There's something mentally wrong with them. So you can only feel nothing but compassion for people like that. So again, that was a tribute to the strength, the emotional maturity that my mum showed in the gauntlet of such hatred. And I just want to say that I think women are the backbone of society and of family. And we may be vulnerable, we may be weak physically at times, but when the occasion asks for it, that cloak of vulnerability, that cloak of weakness, for want of a better word, it gets shed and women become lionesses to protect those that they love. So in America, they call it Mama Bear. In Sikhism, they're called lionesses. In every country, women are celebrated for their strength, their courage, and their resilience. And my book, called Worth, is all about, the resilience of women. I've been through a lot myself as a woman. I've been through illness. I've been through racism, colorism, sexism, you name it, I've been through it. And I've come out strong and I've come out fighting. And I think I owe it all to people like my mum and my Papi, who actually taught me that never ever give up in the face of adversity. Face it, face it, and you've got the power to get through it. So this is a tribute to women everywhere and across the world. And I hope that you'll pick up this book and read it. Thank you very much. My name is Bharti Dhir. I hope you'll pick up my book and read it. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much, Bharti Dhir, for joining me on this edition of the International Book Show Virtual Book Tour, March 2025. On display at the moment, you can see the front cover of Bharti's book called Worth. The book, Worth by Bharti Dhir, is available to be bought on Amazon, Waterstones, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop.org, Booktopia, and Indigo.
Hello, my name is James Patrick Bahinga, and I'm here to tell you about my book, The Plunder. Plunder by James Bahinga. This book is really an investigation into poverty and the causes of poverty. I'm originally from Sierra Leone, and I'm now based in London. I've been based here for quite some time now. The reason why I came here in the first place was to investigate why there is poverty in my country and most of the global south. That quest led me to travel. My decision was to travel, go anywhere, just travel and see how other people live and why they are richer or poorer than us. So that took me to the former Soviet Union, to Ukraine in the former Soviet Union. But when I arrived in Ukraine, I realized that The Soviet Union was a bad decision. I had to leave. My decision was to leave, and I left 1 year later. Eventually, I ended up in London en route back to Sierra Leone because I had to go back to Sierra Leone. Ukraine was just a bad start. So when I came to London, I've been in London ever since. And that is when I started investigating quietly for this book. And today, I actually started writing the book in 2017. What made me start writing actually was a gentleman called Mark Curtis. Mark Curtis had written a book called an article called Honest Accounts, 2014. I read it, but I ignored it. But he wrote another one in 2017. That's when I said, yes. Now I can start my book. So the book started in 2017, finished in 2019. Now, I left it saying when COVID came for a year, and then I went back to it in 2022, added a few chapters. So here we are. You find it in Waterstones, you find it on Amazon, you find it in Barnes & Nobles, Foyles, and most notable bookshops. You can just Google the title here, Plunder, and it will take you to a place where to buy. This book, as I said, is an investigation into the causes of poverty. But the book starts from the Second World War, end of the Second World War, towards independence, decolonization and independence. Well, up to that point, really, in human history, the world was split into two factions. The powerful, militarily powerful, who were dominating the world, and they governed over the less powerful. And the economic system followed that along that pattern as well. If you were powerful, you took over their land, you took over people's lives, you exploited them to your heart's content. You had basically everything, the right to everything they had. They worked for you, they lived their lives for you, and you can do pretty much what you like. Then suddenly colonization stopped. It was such a seismic change in human history. It was such a massive change, in human history that there's nothing before that time had been so so massive. So that is why the book started. We deal with the events after the Second World War, after the colonization. So now, what did the powerful nations in the global north do? They knew the economic system was based on capitalism. Capitalism, as you know, is a predatory system. It actually creates poverty. If you have people here, you have some people rich, the others are poor. The richer these ones get, the poorer those get. So that wealth gap increases. So because capital flows to the top. Once it flows to the top, it stays there. The people here are powerful enough to influence legislation to protect their wealth. And they are not going to let go. And the more they get wealthy, the less these people get. So that is what happens. For legislation only protects those people, not these people. These people are here only to serve those. That's what happens in countries, within a country, within any society, most capitalist societies. But internationally, the same thing happens as well. In geopolitics, every country protects its own interest. Two countries dealing with each other, this one protects its own interest and this one protects its own interest. To a point, even economic aid given to a country is to protect these people giving. It is not there to protect the recipient, it's there to protect the donor. There's always a catch involved, always a catch involved. So that is what we explored in this book, how the changes that happened after the end of the Second World War. Some of the changes involved institutions like the IMF, institutions like the World Bank, WTO, United Nations. Those are all institutions that were formed to protect the global north. They were not meant to protect the global south, the formerly colonized state. No. And so their role since then has been to work in favor of the global north. The United Nations works in the favor of the global north, the World Bank, IMF, all those institutions are there. But added to that, also those institutions was one country, United States, was now added to the global north. They brought in their technological and military muscle and added it to the former colonizers. So that has been the case since. And the technical details of how the flow of capital continued after the Second World War, after decolonization, is what is explained in this book. I mean, some of them you may have to sit down with a pen and paper to see how it happens, because slightly technical, but you get the general idea without calculating the figures. And so, in effect, what we have today is that countries that are resource rich are also very troubled countries. You can see the DRC, you can see Mali, you can see Sierra Leone, you can see Nigeria. If you have no resources in your country at all, you have no trouble. But the moment you have diamond, gold, aluminium, you have these resources that the West wants, then you will not sleep at night. You will not sleep at night because somebody is going to want to take it free. So eventually the resources are taken out of those societies without any benefit to the locals there. But added to that, then the West taking those resources, the locals have to pay the miners for taking those resources away. You literally have to pay them. And I explained here how they pay them. Yes, because so many concessions are given that eventually amounts to paying them. Yeah, you lose money when you have resources. So you are always in debt. Then you go back to the IMF, which is controlled by the same people who are taking your resources and borrow money. So it's a vicious cycle that continues over and over and over. But it is nice to understand how it happens. Yes, that is why I lay them out in this book. Most of the topics here have been handled in different texts, different magazines, different newspapers, but there is no one place where you have all the topics in one place. I managed to get them all, took my time to put them all and explain them in great detail so that you reading it will have a good time understanding causes of poverty. Yes, I hope you have a good time reading it. You find it in forests, you find it in Waterstones, Amazon, and you'll find it in Apple bookstores as well. So I hope you try to secure a copy and enjoy it. It's one of these books that you will need to keep. Yes, you need to, one of these books where you need to keep for a long time. From time to time, come back to it. Yes.
Thank you very much, James Bahinga, for joining me on this edition of the International Book Show Virtual Book Tour, March 2025. The title of James' book is called The Plunder, and it is available to be purchased via Amazon. On display at the moment, you can see the front cover of James's book called The Plunder. And as I mentioned, you can buy the book on Amazon.
Hi, I'm Tamera Foley, and I am the owner of Education for All Now and Garwell Publishing. I am so happy to be with you today, and kudos to all the authors out there. But today I want to focus on one thing, and that is mental health, the mental health of our children. Our children are going through anxiety, depression, stress, all of the things that we see adults going through. they're going through. Remember, if you're a parent and you're at home and you're feeling really stressed and your behavior is showing that you're stressed, then your children are also feeling some of that. So we have some tools that we want to share with you that we believe will help you. If you have children 3rd through 8th grade, we recommend our Healing Hearts book. And our Healing Hearts book is an incredible journey. It's a journey of poetry, reflection, and art. So it's a magical space for your children to create, express, and discover the fantastic person that they are. So you want to just show you what it looks like inside. And as you can see, we have a variety of all ethnicities of children because this isn't for any one ethnicity, it's for all children. And as you can see, we have everyday find joy. So there's poetry, and then there are questions, and then there's a space for them to doodle. Okay, so there's always some space for them to talk about self-awareness, to color, to do whatever they need to do, and to answer the questions. So that's very important. Also, with the Healing Hearts Journal comes a Healing Hearts kit. And in this kit, we have sour candy, and some of the research is saying that the sour candy helps kids to focus. It helps them to calm down, just the taste of it. And we know that that also works for adults. We also have a stress ball, again, because we know our kids are feeling stressed. We have slimy, or you can order with some Play-Doh, and we have colored pencils. And in some of our kits, we have a painting set, we have a mindfulness card, and also what we call a feeling or a stress feeling card. So, and that's for them to just be able, it's a sensory piece, and it's just for them to be able to feel it, to touch it, and see if they can actually feel anything from it to help them calm down. So that's what our kits look like, and they come with every book. Today, I also want to talk about depression in children and how depression shows up. And so even with our tools, we know that there are some things that we need you to look for. We also know that reading, being outside, having conversations with parents, having conversations with friends, coming away from social media, coming away from them on their devices also help to reduce stress and also helps to reduce depression. So we know that depression is a mental health condition, and it affects their mood, and it also may cause them to change their energy level, their internal thoughts, and daily habits. So depression may also cause sadness, anger, irritability, or hopelessness for weeks or longer. Oh, so your child may say, nobody really cares about me anymore. If I just vanish, it would be okay. Nobody would miss me. Or they just may not act the same. They may be sleeping more. They may not enjoy the things that kids at their age they used to enjoy. And they may just feel less motivated. They may not want to do anything. They might not want to go out with their friend. So we know that the exact cause of depression is unknown, but we know it's biological, it's psychological, and there are environmental and social factors that may contribute to the condition. We know that these conditions can also be increased and a greater risk if you have a greater risk of family history of depression, if they have a chronic illness, or if they experience some traumatic life event. And we know that during the COVID, and we're still having people have COVID, people sick, people dying, just not as many. So here's some warning signs that I want you to be aware of with your children. And just know that one of our journals, the Healing Hearts Poetry, Reflection, and Art Journal, can certainly help with this. We also have different journals, and you can go on our link tree, or you can go at educationforallnow.org/shop, or you can go at Cassie's Big Change and order any of these books. So what are some of the signs, the warning signs for children and their emotions? So today, I just wanted you to see, I have on a shirt, and my shirt says, "It's a good day to talk about your feelings." So just because they don't talk about their feelings or they do talk about their feelings doesn't mean that they're depressed, but it doesn't mean that they're not depressed. So some of the signs of depression are feeling sad, hopeless, or empty. They're feeling irritable. You see more signs of anger. They withdraw from their friends or social activities. So perhaps they're in a group at church and they don't want to go anymore. They have low self-esteem. They express guilt or shame. I'm not good enough. I don't know why I did that. Oh, must be stupid. They may say some things like that. They also may have some difficulty focusing or on certain things or keeping their attention, concentrating. And they may experience some suicidal thoughts or thoughts of hurting themselves. And you may hear that, or you may see that as kids may start to cut. Um, they may start to do some things, some harmful things to themselves. They may start to take things that they should not be taking. They may start to try different things. So just watch out for the warning signs. They also may tend to have more headaches, stomach aches. Oh, I'm feeling so tired. I don't know what's wrong with me. They may be sleeping more than usual, and they may be eating more or less than usual. So, if you're noticing some of these signs, some of the best things that you can do, number one, is to have a conversation with your children. And if you don't know how to have that conversation, there are conversation starters. You can provide your child with a safe space to discuss their feelings. And this means showing them and letting them validate, listening, not always um, reacting to what they say, but just listening, giving them their space, nodding, not telling them what we would do necessarily. And if you don't feel like they can talk to you, then take them to a counselor or a therapist or somebody that can assist them and assist you. Ask open-ended questions where they have to give you information and why these habits are changed. Again, help them to validate their feelings. There are so many resources out in our communities that can help you. So please look for those resources. The National Alliance of Mental Illness is one. There are just so many references on our sleeves is another one that helps children. It's called the Kids Mental Health Foundation, and that's just another resource, but many resources out there to help our children. So please make sure that as a parent, when it sounds like something's bothering them and you're not sure, please have a conversation. Talk to them. Um, just say to them, it sounds like you're feeling sad, or that sounds like a really hard or terrible situation that you've gone through. Don't act like it's not important, because it is important to them. So, and if you don't feel like it's going anywhere, you want to encourage them to do some activities that they usually enjoy, even though they don't like it. So again, lots of mental health resources. We also have mental health resources on our website, educationforallnow.org/blog. We have a blog that talks about mental health, and there are a lot of resources, books for children, for adults, things, and a lot of great articles that you can read. So go ahead, go to education for the number 4 allnow.org/blog, and you'll find some different things that they can do: meditation, mindfulness, just different ways to deal with some of the mental health stresses in life. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tamera Foley, for joining me on this edition of the International Book Show Virtual Book Tour, March 2025. Dr. Tamera Foley has written a variety of different books. She spoke about her journals. She has the Healing Trauma Affirmation Journal, Exploring My Emotions Journal, and the Healing Hearts Poetry, Reflection, and Art Journal. check those books out. You can go on her website, educationforallnow.org. If you go on educationforallnow.org/shop, that's where you can buy the books. You can also go on her publishing website, which is www.garwellpublishing.com. If you're interested in getting the book published, check out that website, garwellpublishing.com. And she's also the author of the Cassie's Big Change series. If you're interested in finding out more about the Cassie's Big Change series books, go on the website, cassiesbigchange.com.
Hi, I'm Phil Coffin, a longtime editor at the New York Times who lives in New Jersey, and I'm also the author of a couple of books about baseball. When Baseball Was Still Tops, Portraits of the Game in 1959, Card by Card, which was published about a year ago, and a newly published book, A Baseball Book of Days, 31 Moments That Transformed the Game, which came out just last month. Both are published by McFarland and Company, and they're available at McFarlandBooks.com and Amazon.com. The books are unconventional histories of baseball. They don't tell the story of the game, but they tell many stories that are part of the mosaic of baseball's past. It's a very rich past. So why baseball? Well, the game of baseball and its setting lend themselves to storytelling, and no sport that I know of tells more stories or better stories than baseball. And the history of the game really matters to fans. So what I did was try to weave stories and history together in the two books. When Baseball Was Still Tops and A Baseball Book of Days. And When Baseball Was Still Tops takes a set of the Topps cards in 1959. Topps was the primary producer of baseball cards at the time. And the book has essays on every one of the cards in that set. And there are 572 of them. So you get 572 essays, anywhere from 70 to 700 words. There's stories about players, about the game on and off the field, and also stories about the times of the 1950s and 60s. So some things in baseball relate to things going on in the larger culture, and we talk about those in the book. So why 1959? Well, that's when I fell in love with baseball as a kid, thanks to my older brothers who were big baseball fans. And that was the year I also began collecting baseball cards. That's crazy because you have these 2.5-inch by 3.5-inch pieces of cardboard, and somehow they produce lasting memories, and for me, a lifelong connection to the game. Move ahead to adulthood, and I was beginning to write essays for friends about baseball, and I decided to write about these special cards, the 1959 Topps cards. And when you know, it became a book. Important things were happening in baseball in 1959, which makes When Baseball Was Still Tops more than just nostalgia. In 1959, the Boston Red Sox became the last Major League Baseball team to integrate, and it was a long, long time coming. That same year, the two major leagues were facing a potential competitor league for the first time in more than half a century. The league never played a game. It never really came into existence. But it could have caused a lot of turmoil, and its mere threat forced baseball to add teams to the major leagues and also to move teams to new cities or allow teams to move. And this changed the game forever. The game in 1959 and the game that we have now are radically different because of those changes. So in the years just before and just after 1959, you had other things going on. There were important labor issues, major changes in the way teams were able to sign amateur players. So 1959 sits in the middle of this short time period of vast change, and those themes recur throughout the book. A Baseball Book of Days tells different kinds of stories in a different way. It's sort of an advent calendar of baseball history. Here's a date on the calendar, and there's a pivotal event that day focuses on. Here's another date and another event full of impact. And here's another date. Well, some of the chapters aren't really as momentous as others, some are just plain fun. And the dates give me a chance to talk about some of the really enjoyable moments of baseball in a way that some other sports really can't. So I've been talking a lot about stories. So just what kind of stories can you find in the books? There are all sorts of stories, but my favorite is in When Baseball Was Still Tops, and it involved a young player named Gus Zernial. Now, most people, even baseball fans at this point, have never heard of Gus Zernial, but back in 1951, he was an up-and-coming young slugger living in Hollywood. And that winter, he was asked to take part in a photo shoot for a magazine with a young film starlet. So he talked over with his wife, Marla Jean, who was not thrilled about it, but he says yes, and so they have the photo shoot, and it's just as cheesy as any 50s magazine spread as you can imagine. The photos show the starlet in short shorts and heels and wearing a top that's clearly not a baseball jersey. And here's poor Gus, who later in his life looked like this, his 59 card. But here's Gus with his arms around the starlet, trying to show her how to hit a baseball. It's all just really, it's kind of hilarious to look at now. The magazine article is published, gets some good press around the country. When later that season, Gus goes to New York, his team plays the Yankees, and the great Joe DiMaggio sees this magazine article and wonders something to the effect of, how does a rookie like Zernial get with a girl like that? Joe is intrigued, so he has his people reach out to Zernial's people, and in that magical way, there's a connection made, and that's how Joe DiMaggio met Marilyn Monroe. So Joe and Marilyn, whose real name was Norma Jean, did get married. It was quite a public event, but their marriage lasted only about 9 months. Gus and Marla Jean, by the way, were married for half a century. So I really like that story. Some of the stories are very baseball oriented. And one thing about baseball is that statistics matter a lot, and they can tell their own stories. One of the ones that sort of fascinated me involved one of the highest profile records in baseball, the career home run record. It was a big deal in the 1970s when Hank Aaron was chasing the career record of the great Babe Ruth. For a long time, it seemed as if no one would catch Ruth. He had 714 home runs. And then in the 50s, it looked as if there was a player who might very well catch Babe Ruth. But it wasn't Hank Aaron. It was actually his teammate, Eddie Matthews, who had a tremendous start to his career. As it turned out, however, and I look at the numbers year by year to see how the players are going as they sort of approach Ruth. Matthews stopped hitting home runs, and Aaron never did. And eventually, Aaron surpasses Babe Ruth and becomes known as the home run king. 15 years earlier, you would have thought, no, it's going to be Eddie Matthews. So the numbers kind of tell an interesting story of how their careers changed. In Baseball Book of Days, some of the stories are not quite momentous, really, but they sure are a lot of fun. For example, there's a chapter on what I call the Moonlight Grahams of baseball, players who played in one game but never got a chance to bat. That's sort of like being given an ice cream cone with no ice cream. There was, in fact, a Moonlight Graham. Archibald Moonlight Graham was a real player, but no one knew him because he played one game, never came to bat. And then a Canadian author named Bill Kinsella came across his name and his story, was fascinated by it, and so he inserted Moonlight Graham in his wonderful novel, Shoeless Joe. Shoeless Joe becomes the hit movie Field of Dreams, and now everybody knows Moonlight Graham's story. Becomes very well known. It's a good story, but some of the other Moonlight Grahams have even better stories, and it was a lot of fun to take a look at the 60-plus Moonlight Grahams of baseball and see their brief moment not quite satisfying moment of fame. There's some history that's serious that I like to tell too. Uh, there's the first game of Jackie Robinson, who in 1947 became the first African American to play in the major leagues in 63 years. The chapter also looks at the other players in that game. I think there were 32 others. Many of them were from the South. The baseball was very heavily populated by Southern players at the time. And so one of his teammates was actually called Dixie. And this player, Dixie Walker, was from Georgia, and he really did not want to play with a black teammate and asked his team to trade him rather than have to play with a black man. The team refused. And I got to thinking, how many Dixies were there in Major League Baseball? Turns out there were a dozen, all from the South, of course. One of the funny things was that there are actually two players named Dixie Howell, and their stories were unbelievably compatible. Both were from Kentucky. They played at the same time. And for one season, they even played on the same team. And in fact, one Dixie Howell was a pitcher and one was a catcher. So Dixie Howell pitched to Dixie Howell, something that unique in the game. Maybe not surprisingly, just after the last team in baseball integrated is when the last Dixie played in the major leagues. So there was a lot of change going on in baseball. There's another chapter that looks at the rise of Dominican players in the major leagues. It's fascinating to me that this half an island nation of 11 million people contributes so many ball players. More than 10% of major league rosters are Dominican. I also take a look at the Boston Red Sox long road to integration and how they passed up on some of the greatest players in the game because they were black and for no other reason. Other chapters look at the sudden move of teams to new cities that began in the 1950s and how that almost started a decade earlier, before World War II, which threw all those possibilities for a loop. Those eventual franchise shifts in the 1950s changed the face of the sport. One other chapter also talks about the advent of night baseball, which actually began with experiments in the late 1800s, but night baseball didn't come to light, so to speak, in the major leagues until 1935. Teams were slow to adopt, but they finally did, and now more than 2/3 of major league games are played under the lights. I had some fun too, though. It wasn't just all serious stuff. There's a chapter for March 21st on players named Spring or Springs, and there's a chapter for June 21st for players named Summer or Summers, and of course for December 21st for players named Winter or Winters. Sadly, no major leaguers were named Fall, so there's no September 21st. But all these stories and many more are in When Baseball Was Still Tops and Baseball Book of Days. They're available at mcfarlandbooks.com or amazon.com. So I hope you'll check them out, and I hope you enjoy them. And thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, Phil Coffin, for joining me on this edition of the International Book Show, March 2025. On display at the moment, you can see the front cover of one of Phil's books that he was talking about. Phil Coffin is the author of two books, as he spoke about. The books are titled A Baseball Book of Days, and on display at the moment, you can see the front cover of the book, A Baseball Book of Days. And Phil Coffin is also the author of the book When Baseball Was Still Tops. Those books can be purchased from Amazon, or alternatively, you can go to mcfarlandbooks.com. That is author Phil Coffin. The title of his books are A Baseball Book of Days and When Baseball Was Still Tops. You can buy those books from Amazon or mcfarlandbooks.com.
I'm Vincent Krivda. I'm the author of Pharaoh's Power. I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. I'd like to talk to you about Pharaoh's Power, historical fiction in the Bible, and why this is a relevant discussion for our day. So what I do is I go back and look historically at the 3,000 year dynasty of Pharaonic rule. And I come to a very specific point in the historical record where during the 15th, 16th, and 17th dynasties, all at the same time, we have perhaps as many as 19 or more pharaohs operating in Egypt at the same time. Remember, Egypt was divided into 42 nomes during that time period. And what we found out is that in the north, up in the Goshen region from Avaris, we have an ancient Eastern Semitic Hyksos pharaoh who is in power. And 300 miles south in Thebes, we have the traditional regnal king who was in power, but this king had very little power. In fact, he had been losing wars for well over 100 years to the Hyksos. And so we also have the 16th dynasty with as many as 15 to 19 pharaohs that were all operating in different nomes, focused on the commercial production and the export of produce so that the economies could survive. Now, that's important because of this. In Thebes, the traditional regnal pharaoh understood that he was not winning wars. He wasn't making any inroads. And so they created this fiction. What was the fiction? Traditionally, pharaohs were deified upon their death. But in order to create a right to rule, this particular dynasty, the 17th dynasty, created the fiction that said at the birth of the new pharaoh, they would become the deified incarnate Amun-Ra. That's an important point to understand when you begin to read the book of Exodus, because we have in the first chapter of Exodus well over 30 names and pronouns, but never do we see the name of Pharaoh. In the second chapter, we have Moses with an unnamed Pharaoh and his daughter, and the daughter adopts the boy Moses in order to become the heir to the kingdom. Now, historically, that wouldn't have been possible because he wasn't the incarnate Amun-Ra. He was an adopted boy. Then in the third chapter, we have Moses at the burning bush. And God says, I want you to go talk to Pharaoh, lead my children of Israel out of slavery. And Moses says, oh, who am I, Lord? I've got many things to do here. I've got these sheep. I've got a father-in-law who's getting along in age. And oh, by the way, in the third chapter, in the 13th verse, Moses said to God something very important. When I come to the children of Israel and they say, what is the name of this God? Who am I supposed to say sent me? And that's where we have this historic verse where God says, I am who I am. Now, in the 5th chapter, Moses goes to Pharaoh and he says, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me. Now, the incarnate Amun-Ra, Pharaoh, would have said the only thing that Pharaoh could have said. I've never even heard of this name Yahweh before. And oh, by the way, who is Yahweh that I should obey his voice? I do not know him, nor will I let Israel go. Very telling, because we go into the next chapter in Exodus, chapter 6, and God says something to Moses that is quite startling. He says, I am Yahweh, but I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob not as Yahweh, but as El Shaddai. And by my name Yahweh, I was not made known to them. Now, I've negotiated contracts for 40 years. And I got to tell you, if I would have been in that meeting, I would have just looked at God and said, God, please. It'd have been nice to know that, before you sent me into Pharaoh, you can't be holding back this type of information. Now, I think that this is important because what we've done is we've denigrated the book of Exodus to be a book about an Exodus, when in fact, I don't think that it is at all. In Hebrew, the name for Exodus is not Exodus, but in fact, it's Shemot, or names. Now, if you're going to read a book about an Exodus, you're going to read about something that will take people out of a country. If you're going to read about the murder on the Orient Express, you're going to be expecting a murder and you're going to be expecting a train. But if you read a book about names, you're going to be focusing in on the names. And I think the most important part of this particular episode is that we always come back to that central question: who is Yahweh that I should obey him? And I think that that's the question that we hold and we ask ourselves all the time in very many settings, both formal and informal. Now, with Pharaoh's power, what I've done is actually prepared, I think, a very classic history book where we've demythologized the office of Pharaoh. It does go into specific history, but it also relates back how the Bible could be read if we were able to sit still and listen to the voice and look at the questions that are contained in the Torah and answer those questions for ourselves. Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice? And I appreciate your consideration of Pharaoh's power, historical fiction in the Bible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent Krivda, for joining me on this edition of the International Book Show, March 2025. Vincent is the author of the book titled Pharaoh's Power, and that book is available on Amazon. On display at the moment, you can see the front cover of the book by Vincent Krivda titled Pharaoh's Power. At this point, I would just like to thank the sponsors of the International Book Show and also to mention some of our partners that we work in collaboration with. You can see their logos on display at the moment, and also you can see a photo of Bharti Dhir. Bharti Dhir is one of the authors. You heard her speak about her book called Worth. You can see the photo of her on display at the moment. You can see the Jimmy Asher Foundation logo. Jimmy Asher Foundation, they do a lot of great work. They have different activities, workshops, and sporting things that they do to help young people in the community, particularly children, teenagers. So there's a lot of work, leisure activities that they do. Nubian Nagis Books, the founder of that is Sister Leggett, and they sell a wide variety of books by Black authors on a range of different topics. Education for All Now, you heard from Dr. Tamera Foley earlier from Education for All Now. We have P English Literature. Now, P English Literature is a partner of the International Book Show. So the videos, you may actually be watching this on P English Literature. The videos of the International Book Show virtual book tour that we produce every month, they go on their YouTube channel, P English Literature. They also go on our website, internationalbookshow.com. Polyglot Translation Services, they are a company that we work in partnership with. Polyglot Translation Services, they translate books. So if you're interested in getting your book translated into another language, feel free to contact us and we can put you in touch with Polyglot Translation Services. The email address to reach out to is info@internationalbookshow.com. If you contact us at info@internationalbookshow.com, it is on display at the moment on the top right-hand corner. So, feel free to contact us and we can put you in touch regarding getting your book translated into another language. They do translation in European languages as well as African languages and other languages as well. If you're an author and you're interested in promoting your book on the International Book Show, we also want to hear from you. So send us an email at info@internationalbookshow.com and we will get back to you. Also, if you would like to recommend the author to come on the show, feel free to send us an email. I'm now going to hand it over to the next author on this edition of the International Book Show.
Hi, my name is Arthur Marcen and Moore. I hail out of Dallas, Texas in the United States. I am here today to talk about my books. A little background about me is I was born in New York. They call me a trans Yankee, but I was raised mainly in Texas. My chosen profession is an HR director. I am here to discuss my new book, Gemini Echoes. It's my first delve into a romance, murder mystery genre. This is my book, and as you see, like I just said, it's my first novel. And so what I did when I was creating this was I wanted to combine a little bit of mystery with romance. And so in this book, I cover twins Haviland and Hadassah Cloud. And I chose to write about twins because it deals with that's the element of duality. It's two people that look the same and that are identical but are very different. Haviland is more of the go free, goes by her heart twin, and Hadassah's the more pragmatic one. And Haviland's always responsible for getting Haviland into a situation that's uncomfortable. So with Gemini Echoes, that brings to the forefront loyalty. Loyalty is one of the heavy topics discussed in the book, and it's part of the plot. And while we discuss loyalty, Haviland, as I said, is a very unstable character. So she is tasked with confronting her past along with her present. So she has a past love, Kai, and her present love, Sinclair, and she's torn just as any normal romance, but with a different spin. So I'm thrilled because I had such an exciting time writing this, and the scenes in the book, like the lake, is one of the most pivotal scenes, and so on my cover, that's why the lake is a focus point, because the past and the present collides there, and most of the excitement happens in the scenes at the lake. And she has a very unusual star-crossed love story with Sinclair and Kai. And then you have to take into account the fact that you have to think about betrayal whenever it comes to romance and you're in a star-crossed love. So without saying too much, Gemini Echoes is a love story. It'll keep you guessing, balancing what happens in the mystery, and it gives you a deep emotional connection to the characters. By the time you finish reading the book, from what I heard, no one has expected who the murderer was. People were intrigued with some of the characters that I had in the book, from Kai to Sinclair to Robin, who's one of the anchor characters in the book that's with Haviland. So I had fun writing this, and I hope my readers will enjoy unraveling the mystery in Lakeview, Texas, with Haviland and Hadassah Cloud. My other books that I have are my poetry award-winning series, the Phoenix Heart and Reflections Rising. Those are also available on Barnes & Noble. And Phoenix Heart won an international award for poetry. And in this book, it's an evolution of the heart. So if you like poetry, it is a poem in there that covers whatever you may feel. Again, from love, loss, betrayal to being healed. That's what the Phoenix Heart is about. And my second poetry book, Reflections Rising, it was also, both of these books were bestsellers. It's also award winning in my genre of poetry. And this book is more reflective, has more reflective poems about life, about love, about children, about leaving your legacy. What is your legacy? And it also includes an epilogue that has a journal where you can self-reflect and journal your thoughts in the back of the book, which I thought was very helpful for a lot of readers. Because poetry is my main genre. I believe that poetry heals your soul and helps you to connect with people. So again, my name is Marcen Moore. My books are found on Barnes & Noble. Again, I have my poetry series, The Phoenix Heart and Reflections Rising, and my new freshman novel, Gemini Echoes, again, which covers the story of Haviland and Hadassah Cloud. If you're in for romance, mystery, and intrigue, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcen and Moore, for joining me on this edition of the International Book Show Virtual Book Tour, March 2025. You heard Marcen speak about her books, which are titled Gemini Echoes, Phoenix Heart, and Reflections Rising. You can buy those books from Barnes & Noble. The book by Marcen and Moore, Gemini Echoes, I've actually put on display at the moment. Gemini Echoes is Marcen's latest books. As I mentioned, she also has the books Phoenix Heart and Reflections Rising, and those books are available on Barnes & Noble. Well, that's it for this edition of the International Book Show Virtual Book Tour, March 2025. I hope you enjoyed watching the show. Please do check out our website, www.internationalbookshow.com. On our website, you'll be able to watch previous episodes of the International Book Show. If you're author and you're interested in featuring on the International Book Show in the future, feel free to contact us. Go on that website, internationalbookshow.com. There is a section that says contact us, fill out the contact form, and then we will get back to you. Alternatively, you can email info@internationalbookshow.com. That is info@internationalbookshow.com. And please do check out our Facebook group as well. Go on our Facebook group and join. We've currently got 1,800 members. We're trying to get to 2,000 members very soon. So please do follow us on Facebook to stay up to date regarding the latest information and news to do with the International Book Show. I'm Conan Sankofa, host of the International Book Show. I would just like to say thank you all for watching, and hopefully, you'll watch again next month, which is going to be the April 2025 edition of the International Book Show Virtual Book Tour. But until then, goodbye everyone, and thanks for watching.